Welcome back, Mere Mortal Lights. We've got another session of the Meanderings. It's the 30th of November, 9:19 a.m. We're usually live at roughly around the 9 a.m. time period on the Sunday.
Juan did not master his timing.
I did not master my timing, and yes, we are going to be talking about mastery. We got Juan here.
Karen here on the other
And
side.
look, Meanderings is a chance for us to just be open with a conversation, deep conversation with a lighthearted touch, and we'll probably lay towards more of the lighthearted nature with deep topics as well. Now, I liked the path that Karen's been taking as of late, which is Karen hasn't been doing any of the book reviews of late. There's focuses otherwise in life, but we've been talking about books in general that you're talking about, or like reading, and then kind of translating that
and
into
the
conversations.
themes in those books.
For sure. And so mine's pretty obvious coming off the actual book, which is Mastery by Robert Greene, and it doesn't take too much to kind of figure out what this book is about, or is it? Or is it? That's an interesting point of the question. So I will be doing a book review and a bit of a review on the actual lessons and whatnot. So if I had to ask you, because Karen has read this a long time ago, do you recall why you picked up this book and why you wanted to read it, and if it gave you what you were thinking the book would be about from a mastery perspective?
My basic was I've read 48 Laws of Power. Thought that was pretty good. I might have even read The Art of Seduction at some point. And was like, okay, yeah, you know what? The 48 Laws of Power is good. Mastery, I'd like to master something, perhaps, or know how people go about doing it. So, yeah, I would read it. I don't remember a single thing from this book, I got to admit. So I was going through the chapters here. Discover your calling, the life's task. Submit to reality, the ideal apprenticeship. We've got absorb the master's power, the mentor dynamic. Then
it goes into the social intelligence, emotional intelligence.
Social intelligence, awaken the dimensional mind, the creative active.
And then it actually into mastery.
And then the intuitive with irrational mastery. Yeah, I got to say, and it's, from what I can tell, it's pretty similar. You'd be able to say this, but he's looking at people from history. The Wright brothers, Santiago Calatrava, Martha Graham, Yoki Matsuoka. I don't remember a single thing from this book.
So the interesting thing about these books, and I guess, so I'll talk about mastery in its generality, and we'll start with an interesting question at the beginning.
Have you finished it, or you're just
no, I'm about halfway through right now. And it didn't, so straight up the back, like reading this book wasn't what I expected it to be either. Maybe I would have said, I thought it'd be more instructional than it is storytelling and historical reviews. However, that shouldn't have actually been my viewpoint, given that the 48 Laws of Power are maybe 30% instructional, 70% more historical reviews and biographical type of nature. Correct. This one's even more biographical. There's probably like 95% biographical and 5% instructional. So less on the instructions. So if you're looking for something like that, obviously we'll talk more on book review. But one of the aspects about mastery that it got me thinking was, I think so. The question for you here, Karen, what do you think right now are aspects of your life that, the titles there that gave you, actually, I'll give you the question and then I'll talk about it so you can give some time. What are the things right now in your life would you say that you are trying to reach mastery on? That's kind of like the first call out. And the path that Robert Greene's talking about there is, you typically have an apprenticeship, which is like a 7 to 10 year type of domain where you're doing your 10,000 hours and you're doing all this big learning. From that point, you move into the ability to be creative. So once you know the rules and how to play the game, then you start being able to focus on more specific things about it. I would say that's where we kind of sit in a podcasting lens, in that we went through the big period of 6 years of doing the podcast. We don't necessarily think about the light setup or the camera or this, whatever. That's all now in the rudimentary expectations. We can now focus on, am I speaking a particular way? We don't even talk about ums and ahs and, I should be saying that less. We still do, but more refined than what it used to be. In saying that, the final one is then mastery. And I haven't gotten to that point of this book, but it's insinuating around the 20,000 hours, learning all these things from your mentors, blah, 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 getting to a point that you are seen as the master, the expert, the whatever, that you know full well and can continue pushing the boundaries of what it means. So going into it, would you say that there's things that are clear in your mind that you want to be, either you think you're a master or that others would be like, oh yeah, Kyron's a master at this?
No. No to the first, yes to the second.
Okay.
The no is, I don't think there's anything I'm trying to master, because when you talk about the ideal apprenticeship, it's very easy to do something for a long time and get good at that thing. But when you talk about mastery as a broad subject, I'm thinking you're mastering a skill set that is wide in domain as well. Like, am I a master at walking upstairs? The answer, I guess, would be like yes, in a sense that I can walk up pretty much any set of stairs. But can I walk up, stairs that are can I walk up 20,000 steps? Can I do it fast? Can I do it slow? Can I do it in a, there's if you've seen that video of the guy running down backwards, a kind of like sloping amphitheater, which has those like long steps.
Oh, yes, yep.
Am I a master of doing that? Obviously, no, because I'm not that guy. So when I think of mastery in terms of things that I'm doing, when you talk about, you mentioned the podcast, I would say like I'm good at it, but am I doing the ideal apprenticeship of every day I'm trying to improve? No. Most of the times I'm coming here and it's autopilot. I'm not really striving for, I got to get amazingly better at this thing. That being said, I've put enough hours into enough things, probably got enough natural talent and ordering of my life to get good at certain things. A girl at the gym came up to me yesterday and she's like, "You've got a fanboy." And I was like, "Oh, is it Leo?" Because Leo's my hype man. He's the guy who's always like talking me up. She's like, no. There was this guy, Dan, and he says he's a Colombian guy. And apparently he's like really impressed, wants to get into calisthenics and stuff, and sees me doing the handstands and probably pull-ups and other stuff that I do there. And was like, wow, that guy's really fucking good. Would I consider myself a master? No. Would he say I am? Maybe. There's a decent chance. There's a decent chance. And we'll talk about Ulrich again later, who, he's someone I would say like, yeah, he's probably a master. He called himself a fucking amateur. And this is like, the guy is, if I can get to his level of one-arm handstands, that would be epic, amazing. I'd feel like I've kind of ticked them off in a sense.
Sure.
And he's like, I'm an amateur compared to the real good people. And it's just like, oh man, if you're an amateur, I'm like a subhuman degenerate, like I'm the freaking lick of the squash snail under someone's toes and under their shoe. So no, I don't consider myself a master in anything. Would people consider me a master in some things? Perhaps I'm not too sure.
Yeah, you make a good point, because it is, there's a strong piece of reference in that we live in a world and you can have local mastery and you can have mastery that starts kind of spanning out beyond. And if you consider every single human being, then things change dramatically. If you are defining though mastery as being at a top, let's just say, some percentage that are like at the very top, and that's considered mastery, whether it's a skill set or an understanding or your ability to think, then yeah, that's going to be really hard to achieve that. Like you say, you are seen as a master by most local examples. I would say if Kyron's on the top 50 handstands in Brisbane, like that, I would say that's an easy feat. And so you go, okay, local mastery has been achieved. But of course, you go global and all of a sudden you're the nail. You're the snail and people are just stepping on you because you're shit. There's nothing good in that. So for me, when I originally maybe picked up this book or wanted to read the book, and I've thought about this previously with Josh Waitzkin's book around kind of like the circles getting tighter as you start learning and the art of learning, there's aspects where I was like, okay, well, do I want to become, like, thought process was, do I want to become a master at training or like lifting? No, not really. That's not a particular thing. And I thought, oh, what about, insert here podcasting or creating? No, that's also not what I want to achieve mastery. When you were saying about stepping up the stairs, I think there's a difference of delineation to put on. There's proficiency at something, and there's mastery. And you need a good sense of obsession about the particular thing that you're chasing to achieve not just local, but I say universal mastery. That you'd need some absolute level of extreme thinking to get you past those particular levels, because you're going to have people out there who are just going to be doing everything in their willpower and availability to make it happen. So I don't know if you ever want to become, the top, like if it was like, you want to become a master at handstands, but people are like, oh, globally, universally, he is one in the top 10. Is that something that really would satisfy with what you need?
No.
Probably not. But also to get that would be an inconceivable amount of effort, or even maybe impossible based on genetics and structure and everything else. Right. So that's a reality. Kind of the same reality that went for me. The part that I guess most interested me in reading of what I've read so far was, and not so much like the actual what the book's about, but mastery in its generality was, I dig the local mastery aspect more than the universal mastery. And I can get amongst what that would mean as success while avoiding the pitfalls of mastery in its global scale. I think you are in for a world of pain unless you're that committed, obsessed about something and becoming the best. So again, here's the other example. Podcasting. Or creating content. I could see myself that there would be benefit, energy, prioritization that I would put towards becoming a local master at the craft. So that's better with the lights and better in the conversation and the asking the questions and talking to people at a local level. And that might be Australia, that might be our city. Easy enough. Well, not so much easy enough, but it's doable without impacting the rest of life. And so I could get committed and do that. And that's like a step that's close enough to actually achieve. Not just proficiency, and proficiency would be, I would say we're at proficient level in podcasting, in that whether we do a live, not live, schedule something, do a book review, interview, do a whatever, we can do them. And we're proficient enough to make it happen. And it's at a passable quality that you'd go, oh yeah, those guys are podcasters. But I could see the next step towards a local mastery as a possible and something I would want to achieve. But that's where it ends, because I've heard of the Chris Williamsons and your Stephen Bartlett or your Joe Rogan and what they have to do. Now, Joe is probably a little bit different, but definitely Stephen and Chris, of the people that I've seen more directly, the effort that they put towards, not just them, but all the team members and the things that they have to prioritize to make global mastery occur is something that I just would not be able to achieve right now without breaking loads of other things in my life, and it wouldn't be worth it. And so that to me kind of screams out as I was reading this, being like, oh, this all makes sense at a local level. It doesn't make sense at the universal sort of global mastery level. But is that wrong? Do you reckon that's just because I haven't found something that you should be, like everyone should find something to be a master of?
No, a little bit.
Is that a problem? If you never become a master of something in your life at a global level, is that seen as detrimental? Is that an issue?
You've failed as a human.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't call that. There are two semi-side thoughts to that, though. One is, I think mastery is more the mindset rather than the outcome. So we'll talk about like the limitations, especially physical limitations, things you can't do anything about. If you don't reach the success, accolades, the wonder, the fanboying of people, I still think you can become a master of something, even if like you're physically limited at that thing. So let's just take, before the Paralympics, for example, there'd be people who had like one leg and they'd be swimming, or they would be blind and they'd be running or something like that. They could. I'd say you could achieve mastery of a certain sport or something, having that physical limitation, and you could achieve that and no one would even know about it. No one know your name, no one would give a shit. And so it's more the mindset of getting there, of every day going, I've got 16 hours of waking hours here. How can I use most of them to get me further, to learn more, to really be proactively going, this is where I can improve better. I think was listening to, I've been just watching some random baseball videos, and other American sports seem to be just hitting me at the moment. So okay. I'm accepting it. Otani. I think there was a video that I was watching or heard something about him. Maybe it was one of the other Japanese guys where it was talking about they used to just go to the batting cages and they would just watch fastballs come in. They wouldn't even try and swing at the ball or do anything. They'd just watch it to get used to the speed of the thing.
The ball, yep.
And I saw another chart sheet with Otani was saying like, all right, he wanted to become like number one MLB, Major League Baseball, MLB draft or something. And then there was like 8 squares around that. And it's like, what are the things that would make me get that? And one thing was like karma. One was like hitting average or something. One was speed. One was agility. One was, not getting injured. One was something else. And then there'd be another 8 around, like that would branch out. There'd be another 8 around that. And for karma, he would do things like clean up for himself, be respectful to teammates, be respectful to umpires, things like this. And so he was breaking it down. And essentially, I think that's what mastery is. You got like a big goal, and then it's just breaking down until you're getting to, have we cleaned our mics? Is this the optimal setup? Could we have altered the lighting and put the lighting just a little bit higher, change the settings and things like that? We're not doing any of that. I'm slightly doing that for the handstands, but even then, I'll look at form checks. There's a German dude on YouTube who has some one arm handstand videos and things, and I've been listening / relearning a little bit of German to get into it to figure out like, okay, what are like his particular tips. But I know in my heart of hearts, I'm not going and doing all of these absolute crazy things to master something. And so I think it's the mindset rather more than the end outcome.
That's actually
like the minds.
Yeah, no.
The end outcome matters, of course, because that's when it is master. Like you could have this mindset from
challenge that. No, I'll
day one of learning how to be the golf master, and it's like, well, you're still fucking really shit at golf.
Yeah, I'll challenge that. I'll challenge that idea, but I think we'll go to the let me do the Boostagram early.
Sure.
We'll jump into Boostagrams. Again, it's a chance for us to call out people who have been supporting the podcast as well, and we'll talk about that second part of the caller that you're talking, because I think that hits the nail on what I wanted to talk about today.
Okay.
We've got did I call that out? No, we did. Peter's got a big one here. So I want to read this out. Came through on the 24th of November. I heard this interesting theory once. From an evolutionary caveman perspective, the way the human brain deals with a serious breakup is identical to dealing with the death of a loved one. A very important person in your life is not there anymore and never will be again. In our brutal, primitive caveman days, a modern breakup just wasn't a reality. A woman was likely either stolen or killed. Either way, the loss of a lover is a traumatic event that affects you deeply. A modern breakup is an example of hyper novelty. That's 2,222 sats sent using Fountain. Thank you very much there. Rove Ducks, Peter.
That was a great comment. Thank you, Peter, because it kind of puts in perspective for me of 2020, 2021, which, I would say I was experiencing something like that. It was a bit mixed up because COVID was all happening at that same time. So it's like, I think a lot of things were going on around then. But yeah, I'd give some credence to that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure, Peter, and again, if you want to support us, you can send through some booster grams. That's a fractional Bitcoin that can be sent through in a value for value way, and using all the good podcasting platforms out there to do that. So I wanted to challenge that idea because I think I've done this enough times to see the mistake, and I talked about it in the monthly goals partly, but I'll talk about it more deeply here. I had an annual goal, which I've now cancelled basically. I've pulled it out aside. And the annual goal that I set was I wanted to create a new product ecosystem to reach $1 million.
That's right.
Sort of for the annual, right? And I did pursue, let's say, two full formal ideas and through to see what would happen. And one, we kind of stopped it. The other one, it was still trying, but I was like, okay, I can see this is not going anywhere. There's part of me that doesn't care to progress that particular path down forward. And let's take an example like that, where it's a maybe more an external result, right, or an external outcome. Where, and this is again the learning for me, almost every time that I put something like that, it's 9 out of 10 doesn't sit well, or even if it's achieved, it's not that great. Even when I've put the goals for myself on achieving 300 kilometers of movement or 150 kilometers of whatever, yes, often I do hit it and it does motivate me to go and do the various things. But again, the focus on the external outcome, and I'll bring it back to mastery in a moment, is not as helpful, I think, as an internal reflection or actions that drive certain things that you want to achieve. The view towards global mastery or that achievement of success in the comparison nature, I think is fraught with danger. Can work for a lot of people, absolutely, but it might mean that you absolutely destroy, get rid of all these other things that you really prioritize in the pursuit of one or two great things. I'll take an example of both of us that we don't really know about, but so becoming a gold medalist in the Olympics at 100 meters. It's very likely that unless you are genetically the GOAT or you just have a propensity to be great because everyone's shit at that particular year or something like that, you're probably giving up a lot of things. One random thought that was passing through my mind as something that I was reading here was, imagine you're going for the Olympics and it's early on in the year. Even just a tiny little thing would be, you probably can't go out and be very social or see many people purely for the aspect of, I don't want to make you sick. Or you just don't get sickness from people around, so maybe you won't go to any group gatherings or anything like that. In amongst heaps of other reasons why you might not do certain things, or for the achievement of one particular thing, which might be, hey, I want to win a gold medal and become the best in the world in this particular thing. And I'm not hating on that. I think if you've got that personality or you want to achieve that for whatever it is, the reason that it is, brilliant, all power to you. But I've definitely realized upon myself, I don't want that. I don't want to be master. So going back to the original question, I don't want to be a master, the best in the world at a particular thing. No way. I think that in myself, not helpful. There's nothing that I could say to you right now that I would make me feel really overjoyed to be the absolute best at, because being really great at something is probably like enough of a good thing that becoming the best in the world, there's no extra delta that really gives me that extra satisfaction in favor of how much stuff I would actually lose. And so when you were saying about, the mastery aspect is very much it's kind of the external out, the outcomes. I'd almost say, not that it's probably wrong, because some people could say that, that's what mastery means. But I would kind of go, I think the only mastery that should be cared for any mere mortal out there is just mastery of oneself. And so that angle of and a lot of the times in this book, what I didn't like is that it is a comparison, it is a perspective with all of these other individuals who've done great things and achieved things. And time again, it's like, they did this apprenticeship to become really great at this particular thing, and then they pursued the creative, and then they become the world best, or they did this amazing thing, or they achieved this great stuff. So, not taking that away, but what I'm not hearing or seeing they're kind of like at all is the self-mastery. And maybe I'm going to come upon it in a moment, in like later in the book. But what I'm not seeing is like, okay, I actually go, no, I think it's the self-mastery that's the most important, because very, very key thing that kind of went in my mind when I'm talking like local mastery, I'm just talking, I'll just refer here to like family. So it's me, my daughters. And if I go to that circle, I go, I want to demonstrate emotional mastery. And emotional mastery, why in that very, very local sphere? Because when my daughters look up to me, I want them to be able to see someone who's really, really engaged and able to manage his emotions, whether it's a good or a bad, or the energy and the flow that allows, and what that results in terms of actions. That is absolutely when I want to express and have mastery of emotions in a way that it's going to be directly influential to some people that I really care about. Beyond that circle, okay, there's my dumbbells number of 25, maybe like my close friends, close family, that I'd say, I also would want to express that mastery level, because it would be influential to a good way in that space, and equally in what I can present myself. Beyond that, I couldn't give a flying fuck from a mastery of my emotions to, the 7,000th subscriber to our podcast, or a random person on the street. I'm okay if my mastery doesn't display as well. And I think some people would go, but it's kind of equally important, like there as much as everywhere else. And part of me goes, yes, but the mastery I think I want to mostly applies to those key connections that I care about. And so that from an emotions, I go, That's where it matters. So is it cope? Is it cope for me saying, yeah, but it's just, you're not trying hard enough? Because if you could do that, why don't you just become a really good emotional person that you could be like the best in the world at? And sometimes I struggle. There's like definitely a fine balance between the generally progress for progress sake mentality of becoming better. And I guess the other clear example would be like lifting. There's the mindset like, oh yeah, but if I could do this back then, if I just progress and work really hard, then I could become that much better. And you can become a bit dissuaded with progress if you go, oh, but there's younger people now out there and they're lifting all this crazy weight and they're doing all these amazing things. Maybe similarly how you might see Ulrich or someone else who's like the top level and go, oh, man, like I'm never going to get there. Like I'm never going to do that. And I think that can have a negative result to it if you compare or even attempt to go down that pursuit. Because again, unless you really are that driven motivational person, and honestly, probably most of the individuals listening to the Mere Mortals podcast are not like that. You're probably more aligned to what we're saying in the broadly wanting to become better, but not the topmost person in the world. I think I position myself in that from a more healthy perspective, emotional perspective, mental perspective. The local mastery is where things I see beneficial, but honestly, mastery at a global scale almost seems detrimental to me in most aspects of that I can think of.
Does he talk in the book about people who have unearned mastery in a way? Because I'm thinking of someone, let's just take Aussie homegrown talent, Nick Kyrgios, or who was the other guy who was around at the same time? Tomic. Both of them, I mean, from what I gathered, especially Kyrgios, was obviously he's a bit of an asshole, but it was apparently he didn't train that much. Like he wasn't, he didn't seem to have the mastery mindset, and he got to like top 10 in the world, didn't he? So like, I think that's round where you could say like, all right,
this is like a master. Yep.
Yeah. There's a dude who's, meticulous. And there's actually a guy at my gym who I believe is a top 500 player in the world, in tennis. And, I see him in there and he's doing the type of things that you'd kind of expect from a master, which is obviously he'd spent a lot of time actually playing tennis, but in the gym, he's, going on a box, jumping down onto one leg and kind of like springing to the side. He's doing all these like tiny little things, which is like, all right, that's probably improving his slight, injury prevention or springiness from moving in a weird angle to reach a ball that goes behind him or something like that. That's someone I go, okay, like he's doing like the tiny little minutia things that he's trying to improve on, which will eventually stack up to like the big goal. I don't know if Kyrgios ever has done that. Let's say he hasn't, and he was just he'd just go on the court and he's just really fucking good at hitting balls. And I'm sure he did thousands of hours, but maybe he probably didn't do tens of thousands of hours. So is he considered a master then? Like if he doesn't have the mentality that Robert Greene talks about in this book, if his creativity is just pure, like he was already creative. He didn't need to do the apprenticeship. He could just skip to the creativity.
Well, no, I think you can. I mean, I don't think it's discussed in there, but if by this definition of mastery, it's the fact of doing something long enough so you understand the rules, so then you can be creative and kind of explore and try out different things, and then be a master in that you are almost leading the charge on the way things are done or the path, or you're discovering new interesting things that are making incremental gains in that perspective. So earned or unearned, you could be a genius when it comes to hitting, tennis balls, and already when you hit the ball, you're already kind of creative. You don't even have to focus on your swings. You're already thinking of like, oh yeah, but if I move my little toe this position, it even gives like 2 kilometers more per hour or whatever. I'm sure you have people who are just like that extra level of it and become a quote unquote master. I think this is where my challenge lies, in that I think mastery as a concept at the local, and here I'm going just as an individual, useful. I think mastery at the achievement, not useful, because you don't know. You can't express that particular opinion on others because you don't know. Again, I was talking about running. So with the same bolt, from an external perspective, we could say he was a master at running because he did win. But you don't know what level of training was he doing? Was he someone who was like gifted with a lot of things? Maybe he did train really hard, but as time has passed now, he's not the fastest runner. Is he still considered a master?
Yeah, everyone talks about the chicken nuggets that he ate before the Beijing Olympics.
So there's all this like concept of mastery at the global comparison level that, maybe you can attune to it and think that it's useful. As kind of guy, I don't think it's useful at all. And this is my gripe with this book, is that as he retells stories of biographies and things like that, in particular, say Thomas Edison, that he mentions quite a few times, there is displays of grit and determination that, quote unquote, give mastery. But I've read in other books where they also talk about Thomas Edison in a bad light, in that he stole ideas from other people and did all these terrible things as well. And so it's like, I guess you could claim that someone is a master at this particular thing, but hey, not at this other thing. So then they're not a master at that, they're a master at this particular thing. And you could make a bit like, well, yeah, but even within that, it's not this. So I almost go, I don't think it's beneficial. I think it's a semi-useful at best comparison as a human to another human, but at the you perspective, at the mastery of yourself, super, super useful. And the way I'm kind of taking away from the book is more all of the examples that it provides, which again is like 95% biographical, 5% informational, is more, okay, how does this particular story sit in any way, shape or form in things that I'm doing in my life or attempting to do? I think more of that absorption is where I'm seeing it best fit, as opposed to, this person did that, so if I can do something similar, then I can achieve these things. Nah, I just think that's the wrong perspective to take. And I was talking about in the monthly goals, that's where I went, I think that annual goal that I set for the $1 million, that was incorrect. Why? Because again, if I think about it from those external outcomes, it can be useful as a directionally useful thing, but it's ultimately not as useful as other things. And so, if I didn't ask the right questions, and it's like, okay, why do I want to achieve that particular thing? Is it just because it might be fun? Well, it might have been in part because, I want to be more secure with the family and set up. Okay, well, so you want more security in that. In yes, putting together a statement of, I want to achieve X amount of money by this particular thing as an ecosystem. Maybe there's other underlying things around that, which one of my goals I talked about in November was what's my skill sets versus things that I'm doing? And doing that review, it actually dawned upon me, it's actually more important for me to care about mastery of myself on learning and becoming great at different skill sets that I have, as opposed to the focus of what then that can achieve. So as an example, and I've said this before on the podcast, one of the things that I'm toying around with that would be fun is becoming better at speaking and realistically more public speaking, because God knows we do enough talking on the podcast. And aspects of that it's a skill set. It's interesting. Now I could put the lens on it and go, okay, well, what does that mean? I can become master, and that means I could do a TED talk, or I could go and give speeches and shit like that. But that, one, doesn't really motivate me. Two, it's probably the incorrect lens to put it, because again, it's then becomes comparison and who can get into whatever thing and do fees and But the important bit here is almost the points that you can give yourself of the internal review from mastery perspective on, okay, if I was to be better at as a public speaker, okay, how do I either gamify it or demonstrate to myself that I'm moving my way towards a mastery point? And then there's very specific actions than what might take that doesn't have to be guided by the rest of society that's doing. Again, we live in society, so you have to have some guidance and rulings of what's considered good and not good, fine. But you can just kind of apply that to yourself to be content and happy when you're reaching those aspects. The example, another one where I saw this was when I did those acting classes a couple of years ago. And I went into it not with the idea of becoming an actor, but to do a skill set and improve it and have fun with it. And in the very short, I think it was 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 6 sessions that I did, and it was in a group setting, it was fun to see and do and increase a particular skill set, to then also know that you don't want to become a master in that space, and definitely not into a comparison purposes. Mm-hmm. If I'd gone in there with a purpose of if I do this and I become really good, and what's a master at that? Oh, you got to be a Hollywood star that does this and that. Man, that would have been terrible for me. I don't think that would have worked out in so many different ways. It would have been terrible. And so it's other examples in my life where I've gone, it's the internal mastery that I would say is of utmost importance. And then figuring that out, then the examples of, okay, well, it's the social intelligence and understanding and seeing other people and how it applies to yourself. All good, but I think it's how you yourself see yourself to reaching mastery. That's kind of like the most important part of it all.
Probably the tricky bit with this book is he uses mastery, but he talks about masters. And there probably needs to be a separation between the two. Mastery is the act of the mindset, the act of doing things, the grit, the hours, the process, I guess. And then a master is the top level. That's the person, that's the thing. And that's where the comparison comes in that you're just talking about. So
the concept is murky at best and becomes even more problematic on things that people are contentious about. If we were to stand here right now and say, okay, well, who's the master of making money? Is the answer Elon Musk? Like, is that really the answer of making money? I kind of go, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I'd say he's a master of other things, and money was a byproduct of those things.
Yeah, but you can get into you could get into such a debate about this of like, yeah, but he's got the most money. Like, his net worth is the most, so that say technically he's the best at making money. And you could sort of say like, yeah, that's because it's a byproduct of that he followed his interests and followed crazy ideas, and that generated money.
And then what happens if the Oracle price rises and that other, is it Larry Ellison?
Yeah,
or something?
Larry Ellison.
What if he
overtakes
him? Is he now the master?
Handstands. If you've got someone who can do a handstand for 2 hours, is he the master, or is it the one who can do the one-handed handstand for an hour?
Yeah.
But then you split it into each side, and it's like, oh no, well, it's more master for the one. Okay, well, if it's one arm, it's like this variation or this, or what if you're doing it when you're tired? And then you can get into this gigantic debate that I just don't think is as useful as saying you've mastered yourself. And that is, it's a concept like you're saying, it's N of one. Yeah, it's just you. So you have to become a master of yourself. But then the challenge in that lies is that you need to know yourself really deeply in that, okay, have you pursued, what's that saying, the old Greek saying of like, shame is to the man who doesn't, from Socrates, or shame is to the man who doesn't find out the true extent of his human capability, something to that effect, right? It's just like, if you don't pursue what you could become, don't worry about the outcome, don't worry about the results, but more of being able to, like, if you could see that you could have become someone who sprinted 100 meters in 10 seconds, but you didn't pursue that, it's kind of like saying, like, shame on you. Now, I would also say, if you don't care about it, also not shame on you. But if you do care about something, and it would be a shame to not express and pursue as far as you can for an internal mastery perspective.
I mean, how many Einsteins have been working out in the fields of the, before the Industrial Revolution, and they could have pursued their higher calling, so to speak, but one didn't get the opportunity, and then I guess the more Socrates aspect is they could have, but they were scared or something like that. And I think that's adjacent. If he'd written the book where he described people without actually naming them and said, this person did XYZ thing, they rose, you'd maybe be able to see like, oh, okay, they did this, that's probably Thomas Edison, or, this person did this, probably Roger Federer or whatever. But if he also did it on people who were like no-namers, there was a couple of people I read right at the start there.
Yeah, there's definitely some people that I've never even heard before.
And I think that would make it for a bit more of an interesting aspect, whether you then reveal the actual names of the people at the end or not. That's a literary choice. But I think that would create a bit more of a delineation between the master and mastery. And the last aspect on this, which is I hear all the time, and it's even in the bunch of the titles, the chapter titles, apprenticeship, mentor. Do you need to be, is the true master the one who can then teach to the next generation of masters, and therefore like the true master is the one who has the most master students? This is something I've heard a bunch of times. Like you don't really know something until you can teach it. Personally, I disagree with that. I don't think you actually need to be able to teach something. I think those are separate skills. You can be really good at something and not necessarily good at explaining it. This would be, let's take a savant who can draw or, memorize pi to a ridiculous degree. Photographic memory. They can just see a sheet and list it off word by word. You can't teach that to anyone. That's just straight and build. Are they a master? Yeah, sure. They're a master at fucking memorizing pi to X degree. Then you've got the dude who does like the memory palace and he can actually memorize it to, I remember hearing this the other day. It's an absurd number, like 1,000, 10,000 digits, whatever it is. And he can actually teach that to people. Is he more of a master? This is, I would say,
but again,
no. But the
mastery
mastery aspect, the memory palace guy has conquered more or is more aligned with mastery than the guy who's just a savant.
Able to do that. Yeah, that's a very good distinction actually. Master versus mastery is a very distinctive thing. I think it's I'll end up with saying the concept of master or mastery. Master maybe is usable in that you could really distinctly say this is the master, this is the top person. Fine. Mastery in the concept of the global space, less so. I just think the complexities and the variables that exist in that space is almost pointless for anyone really to understand how it might apply to them. Interesting to read, again, like a biography. It's like reading a Steve Jobs biography or an Elon Musk biography. You understand things that may make them a master of whatever the hell you want to dictate it to be, but unless you could understand every internal possibility of that human, kind of makes no sense. It's just a non-plus. But for you in the local space, absolutely become the master or pursue mastery for yourself in these spaces that skill sets, values, things that you care about, the actions that you take, because that within your local sphere, hugely influential, right? Again, I was having a convo with my wife this morning about our daughters in the future. My aim is to make it really hard for them to have a partner or a partner that they want, because the level, the baseline that I've got to provide in terms of holy shit, males can be this good, should be crazy.
There's already a loneliness epidemic, and you're fucking setting them up.
I'm setting the highest bar possible. That's what they're gonna get. So that to me, I'm like, I've got local influence to do that, but to say that I can then, be a global presence in the space to influence some Ugandan kid to do whatever, I kind of go, it's not useful. It's if it happened, it's awesome, but that cannot be a goal. It cannot be a thing that I strive for. So similarly, when I think my failure in the past has been the last couple of years, setting some of these goals that I go, that's not that it's not realistic. It's just that it's actually not valuable for me to set those goals. And so I talked a little bit about it in the monthly goals. It's more along the lines of, I think it's, again, what are the things I'm obsessed and find joy in that I can lean into the doing? What are the ways that I can break it down that I'm talking more skill sets and learning and practices that are absolutely controllable at the local level and doesn't have to matter in a global level.
Yeah. I like the word mastery. That to me conjures the positive aspects of you're going after something, you're learning, it's got this kind of positive thing around it. When I think of master, I think of, it's the master bedroom. So therefore that perhaps implies something related to dominance or power. Same with a master slave relationship. The master key, that implies, I guess, a broad ability across all things. Masters of the universe. That was the title for today.
Masters of the
He-Man. Where's He-Man's grind, man? I never see He-Man in the gym fucking pumping weights. I never see him working on his sword skills. He's just out there.
Just is.
It's like he's already there. He's already done it. So you don't see it. So I definitely like the word mastery more than
the master. Yep. And honestly, if you come across someone who calls himself a master, then even if they are, man, that's one dickhead I don't want to talk to. That's it. That's not someone I probably want to be aligned with.
My favorite quote, Buddhist quote, Taoist quote, is the master does nothing, yet he leaves nothing undone. And that is very much in that aspect of the way, the Tao, which is the more you like try and do things, the less you can actually do it. And it's paradoxical. It's meant to be not make sense in a way, but if you kind of contemplate it in a bit, you're like, oh yeah, you know what, the master, like the truly great person, he doesn't need effort to do a thing. He just does it. And it's more of like enjoying the present moment. Actually, that's probably what I'd boil it down to. Mastery is enjoying the present moment or focusing on the present. So it's like, here's this tiny little thing that I'm going to try and get better at with the perhaps aim of a larger thing. But at this moment, I'm trying to master this one particular aspect, achieve mastery in this particular swing, this particular like thought or creative pattern. And master is more like the future goal. Like I'm living in the future. I'm trying to achieve this thing.
Yeah, that's a good
who
distinction.
I'm trying to be, or even comparing yourself to people from the past. It's like, yeah, I was this, or things like that. So
yeah, okay, I like that. We'll
achieve mastery.
Achieve mastery, people.
If you want to.
If you want to support us, folks, you can go to Meanderings.
The easy way to achieve mastery.
/support. Yeah, that's right. You'll get automatic.
Send us a bunch of money and
a bunch of money,
and
a bunch of sats.
You'll have achieved
automatically.
Mastery of,
yeah, I don't know what you'd achieve of support. Yeah, you can support us that way. You can go to our Discord channel. Don't go in there if you want to ask for people want your software developer skills. Karen's going to kick you out.
I'm cutting it down.
Yeah, it's going to
you
cut
can
you
ask.
out.
You can ask once, and I'll be like, no, we don't do that. If you ask a second time,
you're going to go. You can do that. You can go through all the socials. But again, December's going to be a slightly quieter period for us in that we focus on other things in life. I think it's also a good thing to just kind of step back, and we'll still continue the weekend conversations, but it's just an ability to step back and focus on other things.
Oh, sure.
That's just how mastery is over time. Thank you very much for those tuning in live. And now we'll leave it there. Me Immortalized. Juan out.
Karen out.
Good boy. Boy.